Hello, friends. Today we're going to talk about Medallion of Courage, which is the main focus, but it builds into Solar Crest and they fill a very similar role, so we're going to talk about both. But like I just said, the focus is on Medallion. Peekaboo, here I am, blocking Solar Crest. Let's get into it. We're going to start by breaking down the items as usual. So, Medallion of Courage, 5 armor, 1.25 mana regen. Nice. Not the reason we really buy this item. But to be fair, I will point out this item is very cheap. The armor is quite nifty, except for the fact that when you use this item, you lose the armor. So, it's like, it's good when we're not using the item, but we can't really factor that in as, like, oh, we're going to go into a team fight, I better have more armor. The Medallion of Courage, we need to use it in the team fight, so you can't really consider that armor as protecting you because we're going to lose it. But in other times, it protects you from a stray, like PA suddenly jumping you while you're pushing out a lane or something. And in that case, the armor is kind of nice, but it's not an item about you. This item is about other people. Except for the mana regen, that is about you. It is good. Kind of minor, though, 1.25. So it, helps your mana issues if you have them. But it's not going to, perfectly solve it. You're still going to need some clarities. Or, a mango tree, something like that. Or maybe another mana regen item. But it factors in, not bad. Let us move on to the active, because that is really what this item is about. Cast it on an enemy, or... Okay, you cast it on an enemy, subtract 5 armor from them, and cast it on an ally. They gain 5 armor. When you use this item, you lose 5 armor from yourself. So, by its very nature, this item is about your teammates and about the enemies. It is not an item you buy for yourself. Not like Glimmer Cape or Ghost Scepter. Those were more... Well, especially Ghost Scepter. Glimmer Cape you can use on your allies, but you could use it on yourself. And those were items that had, a self-focus. Like, oh, I need to survive, or I need... let's say the Yules, I need some setup and mana regen. They were things related to ourselves. But the Medallion of Courage is very much about your teammates. The Valor, the active, no one thinks about it. I never think about the active names, but Valor only has a 7-second cooldown and it has no mana cost, which means you can use this very freely for anything you see fit. So you can use it. You see your carry farming a camp, you could use it on the carry. Buff up their armor a little bit so they don't take as much damage. Or you see they're focused on, one big creep. Debuff the big creep, make it easier for the carry to kill them quickly. It costs no mana, so you can just throw it out as frequently as you want. And you just have to be a little careful. If you are losing 5 armor, so be a little careful of that. If you know you're about to take a bunch of physical damage soon, you might want to be a little careful. But you probably still just need to use this item if you need to use it anyways. We'll get into that very soon, I promise. Solar Crest, I feel like we should just talk about it now. Again, this is a bit of a luxury item. I might consider a Medallion of Courage before going into a Glimmer Cape because Medallion is so cheap, 1,000 gold. I can get it and then move on into another core item like a Glimmer Cape or a Force Staff that I needed, but I was willing to push off for this 1,000 Medallion because it could help me out for a little bit. The Solar Crest, there's no reason to ever rush this first item if you need any other item. So if you need a Glimmer Cape, you're almost never going to say, oh, let me get the Solar Crest first, and then I'll go back for the Glimmer Cape. That is weird. This is a really expensive item. But if you have no other item that you need, and Solar Crest is good, then yeah, you can sometimes get a first item Solar Crest. And I've done it a couple of my games, and we'll talk about that. I feel like I keep saying that. We're getting to it. We're almost there, guys. But the armor, again, we're going to lose that when we use this item. So it's The attributes, not bad. Very expensive for what we get because the ultimate orb it's a very expensive item, not very cost efficient for the stats, but 10 attributes, it's fine. 20 move speed, very convenient because Windlace is a very commonly bought item, even if you don't need it. People just use it to fill a slot. So the fact that you could actually use it to build into something is pretty value. And no hero says that they don't want more move speed. Like, it's just nice to have. And then your mana regen gets bumped up a little bit. Really not significant. Or it's not like a consideration for why you buy Solar Crest, so we're not even going to get into it. Like, it's a bit of a consideration for Medallion, but like for Solar Crest, it's not. So the active Shine, it's different now. It now has a bunch of weird effects. Whereas Medallion is just minus armor, this now has the minus armor, but it also has 80 attack speed and 10% move speed, and you are not affected by those latter two. So you don't lose any attack speed and you don't lose any move speed when you use this. You only lose the 8 armor. If you use it on the enemy, they lose all of that, and if you use it on an ally, they gain all of that. This shifts the item a little bit. So for Medallion, because it was just 5 armor, it was pretty easy. Like, you were always thinking, okay, does my carry need 5 armor to be protected? Or do they need, or like, does it benefit them to have a target that has negative 5 armor? The Solar Crest, the attack speed, 80 attack speed, is actually quite significant. And so now it becomes this shift of, it's not just the armor. It is now debating whether your hero or your carry or whoever you're using it on specifically benefits from attack speed. So like Faceless Void, he's not a hero that needs minus armor to function, but he loves attack speed because that lets him bash his targets and kill them. Whereas Phantom Assassin is a hero that cares about the armor reduction and not so much about the attack speed because she has her own attack speed steroid. And she has kiting ability, so she doesn't really care about the move speed either. So depending on who is on your team, Solar Crest, well, I mean, Medallion is the same, but like, you're going to have to make the decision, do I use it on the carry or do I use it on the enemy? And Solar Crest, it gets a little more complicated because of that attack speed element. I mean, you can read this stuff, so I don't feel like it needs to be talked about, but you can't cast it on spell immune enemies. It's dispellable as well. So if you cast it on enemy, they can dispel it, but you know what? This is 7 seconds, so like, you would just use it again. Who cares? This can give away illusion heroes on your team. So if you have like a Naga Siren on your team and she uses her illusions and it's not clear which one is real, but you cast it on the real Naga, it kind of gives it away. So you have to be, that's a consideration for using these items. It does reveal who the true Naga is. But you can play some mind games around there and cast it on an illusion and like trick them that way, so it can be a good thing. But just keep that in mind. So how do we use this active? Finally getting into this, which I'm sure you've read by this point. First of all, only some heroes buy Medallion, and it tends to be because they can stack minus armor. So people like Dazzle and Vengeful Spirit, they have negative armor in their own kits, so they use that, and then they use the Medallion as well, and you're really getting down there. I don't remember where I've said it before, but the way armor works, it is diminishing returns. So if someone has 40 armor and you subtract 5, it is like not that good. But if they have 5 armor and you subtract 5, that is like super good. Inevitably, people eventually end up at high amounts of armor. So that would mean Medallion drops off. But when you combine it with someone who has innate negative armor through their skill set, it makes it not drop off as hard, which helps it carry over into the late game. So when you have that hero with 40 armor, you're not only subtracting 5, but now your ability, you're subtracting another 5, and now that's 10 armor off. And now we're getting somewhere. Like, now that's starting to be pretty useful. And then if someone else on your team buys a Deso, they have another negative armor ability. Like, we are slowly chunking down all that armor. Like, that is pretty useful. And so that's why you frequently see this on heroes that already have some negative armor. Next, you use it when you have like a true hard carry and you are buffing him up. You're like a 4 protect 1 strat, like you are protecting your boyo, maybe 2 of them, maybe you have like the mid and the carry. But this item to me is very much when I have a carry that I want to enable. It is not so much about me setting up a kill or something like that. It's like, I want to protect this guy by giving him more armor, or I want to make him kill things faster by subtracting their armor. Now, along that lines, it also enables Roshan. Roshan is a bit tough to kill. Some heroes can do it on their own without any other items, but a Medallion makes Roshan much easier to kill for many of those heroes that are in that middle ground that can't necessarily do Roshan on their own easily at the start, but they will eventually reach a point, like all heroes will eventually, not all, but many carries will eventually reach a point where they could solo Roshan. But in that middle ground, the Medallion helps you be able to do Roshan sooner, and that can be really good. I want to highlight this. This is the lore description of the Medallion of Courage. Of Courage. This is not an item you buy to chill out in the back, drag the game out, late game focused. This is an active item. Literally active item for an active playstyle. We are moving. We are playing aggressive. We're fast. Like, I am doing things. I'm looking for kills. I'm looking for Roshan to speed up the tempo of the game. No fear. We are going in. That is what Medallion is for. You do not buy it on like a Warlock who is going to hide in the back. We're waiting for 50 minutes for our Spectre Warlock combo. Like, that is not useful. But when we're playing behind like a Huskar, playing super fast, like, it is time to fight. No fear. Let us go. Medallion. Really good for that. And obviously, it needs to be around physical, because this whole thing is about minus armor. If you're not physical, if your heroes are magic, then they're like absolutely useless. So keep that in mind. One last thing I should say about Medallion. If you are going to get a Medallion, it tends to be your very first item. It is quite cheap. This helps. The build-up, also quite nice. There's a chainmail. So usually what you'd probably do is like a Blightstone Sage Mask into the chainmail. But the order's up to you if you need the armor for the lane, whatever, sure. Why do you get it first item? The sooner you can get this negative armor, the more effective it is. When people have low amounts of armor, armor reduction is better, just because it has that diminishing effect. Which means if we pick up a 40-minute Medallion when the enemy carry has 30 armor, kind of not so good. But if we pick it up at 8 minutes, when the enemy carry has 7 armor, wow, we put them down to 2. That is like a 25%. That's probably a little too high. It's probably about 20% damage increase. That is crazy. That is a lot. For 1,000 gold to enable like a Huskar who's popping off. What? And because it's cheap, we can get it first and then go into other things. So if you really want this item and you're a hero that works well with it, you can even go like brown boots straight into Medallion. But I would very rarely pick this up if I need something else first. So like if I was, spoiler alert, you haven't seen this yet, but if I was, say, a Dazzle and Medallion is good on me, but I need to get Glimmer and Force first, so I get those, it's a little weird to go back for a Medallion at like 35 minutes plus. Just because at that point it's not so good, and it's kind of better to get something else. Now, if you can get the Medallion first, and then it carries over to that like 35 minutes, like, okay, that's fine. Like, we got the extra value out of it at the start and helped us get to this 35 minutes. Like, we used it, well, ideally, we used it to get to this point and put ourselves in a good spot. And so we don't mind that at the 30-minute mark, it's not as good as the start. But if you don't get that value out of the start, then like, why pick it up later? Maybe if the enemy team has like really prioritized negative armor and you really have nothing else to buy and you just need to enable a carry, then it's like, okay, yeah, I'll get a late Medallion of Courage, and it probably means you're going to build it into a Solar Crest at that point. But you can absolutely get a Medallion of Courage at the very start of the game and then not build it into a Solar Crest because, again, we made use of it early. let it drop off, whatever. But if we're going to spend 1,000 gold in the late game for a medallion, it better be because we're eventually going to get the Solar Crest. And Solar Crest is actually pretty solid even in the late game, but it is expensive. And so you have to make sure there's nothing else you need to buy besides this. You have solved everything else. Your Force, your Glimmer, Blinks, whatever, all of that. Now, with the idea that Medallion is this active, aggressive item, let's talk about some heroes that would get this and what heroes might encourage you to get this. So first off, let's talk about some synergy between the hero you're playing. So here are some supports that will frequently get Medallion. So Dazzle likes the mana regen, but his ult, like this is the real reason he's getting it. Every time you cast a spell with his ultimate, you are reducing the enemy armor within the area. And so when you combine that with the Medallion, you get a bit of mana to continue to spam out spells. You combine those negative armor, like you're getting a lot of value out of it. So that's why I think Dazzle is actually the #1 support who buys this item. It's really good. Vengeful Spirit, Wave of Terror, armor reduction. Pretty good. Venge Aura also boosts up her carry. That means her playstyle matches the purpose of Medallion, which is to enable a carry and to play fast with them. Now, sometimes, of course, these two heroes do play later in the game, but I think it feels like the times it feels best to play these heroes are when you are playing this fast tempo game, enabling a core with a minus armor, and of course you can go later, but like it doesn't feel as great. And if you do go that way, you may not build Medallion. You may buy more typical long-term items. But when you are playing them very fast-paced, and both these heroes can do that, the Medallion matches that. Now, Tusk.
The Tusk.
I didn't know tag team was physical damage. But it is. But that didn't matter to me. I actually still knew that Tusk was a Medallion builder. Because how does Tusk play? Well, he can play two ways. He can be a save, and he will rush a Blink Dagger, be very protective, and his Snowball will be the save. But other times, when you have a lineup that fits this, you can play very aggressive. You are the first one to go in, you Medallion someone because you are like selecting the target. You snowballed them, you like trap them off with Ice Shards, you are killing this guy. I will Walrus Punch him. Apparently I add physical damage from tag team, didn't know that. But that's why the Medallion fits. It also, if you don't use it, it gives him some armor to be like that frontline guy who goes in. The mana regen, he doesn't have the greatest mana pool, but his spells are like also not that expensive, so the moderate amount of mana regen ends up being enough for Tusk. But it's that play style. I want to play fast. I want to single out a target and kill that guy. I'm going to subtract his armor so my entire team will hit him. We are aggressive and a fast playstyle. Bounty Hunter, same deal. I track someone. Let us all run at this guy. Bounty Hunter himself gets the critical strike chance from tracking someone, and with the Janata damage, if you Medallion someone before hitting them, it is actually quite a lot of damage. And of course, you're just a support, so you're not necessarily looking for damage, but if it synergizes well with your kit, like that's quite nice. But the fact that you track someone and Medallion them, it really makes it easy for your team to properly identify, hey, this is the target I should be killing, and it's easier for me to kill them because they are Medallioned. And Bounty Hunter likes that playstyle. He wants to get kills with track. He doesn't love sitting back and watching people farm. Like, that's not how Bounty Hunter wants to play. He wants to be encouraging this aggressive style, looking for kills. He doesn't care if both sides are dying, because we always get more out of it as the Bounty Hunter player. Our team gets more out of trading kills because of track. Now, Treant Protector, he can be played in a very active style. If you watch me play Treant Protector, you never see this because I don't do this. I'm going to make myself try to do this actually a little bit more just to expand my own playstyle of Treant Protector instead of always being greedy, which I realize is not the best. So I'm going to, I need to try to do this. But he can. He can be quite aggressive. He runs through trees, set things up, and Medallion works out for that. You are playing a fast tempo, setting things up, point out the target, figure out who you're trying to kill, you leech seed them, you slow them, you root them, whatever, you medallion them, that guy's dead. And that lets your team play fast. I think these heroes are some of the more common ones to buy a medallion, and it's because they all have, they won't always do it, but they have a playstyle that fits very well with what the medallion does, which is that aggressive, fast tempo item. And they either enable carries, like these guys enable carries, who, like the Shallow Grave, let them go crazy, or you're boosting their damage. Treant protects them, armors them, and then that's the nice part about Medallion. You like double stack armor if you are using it protectively or defensively instead of aggressively. Living armor plus Medallion, your carry has like 10 extra armor for free, or up to 13 if you're maxing out. That's crazy. That's a lot. And then these guys are like aggressive, more so where they are like starting fights. Now it's not limited to them though. Like you could buy it with an Undying, you could buy it with Abaddon, other heroes, whatever. They usually want to be supports that are also focused on, what we've talked about, enabling a carry, playing fast tempo, whatever. So if it's not one of these supports, it will be, your decision to get Medallion will be much more influenced based on who your teammates are, which is what we're getting into next. But for example, Dazzle might buy a Medallion even if he has a hero that's not on here, like a PL, just because the Medallion functions so well with Dazzle. But let's move on to that. Let's start talking about the teammates, people that make me think I might want a Medallion this game if I don't need one of those other items. And even if I do need one of those other items, Medallion is so cheap that sometimes I'll get it first anyways, if the game is going well. So Phantom Assassin, a hero that has natural armor reduction in her talents, very frequent builder of Desolator, has her own kiting and slowing mechanics, has her own attack speed. All she wants is to get those crazy crits to kill people off. You enable that with Medallion. And if you watched OG play against Secret in the recent tournament, you saw that they stacked it on Phantom Assassin. They played this very heavy 4 protect 1 strat. And in fact, they had both a Medallion and Solar Crest. Fun fact, both of those can be applied to the same hero. You can't apply 2 medallions to one hero, but Solar Crest and Medallion, that works. And they just buffed up their PA and let her go crazy. Now, I think if you're going to do like both a Solar Crest and a Medallion, it does kind of make sense to throw it on the PA because she's going to be jumping around the fights. It's kind of hard as a support if you're in the back to like keep up with that. So it's easier to like throw it on her, let her go crazy. But in our pub games, especially if you're just getting Medallion, it might be better in general, I would say, to use it on her target because she has blur, she has decent armor on her own already. I don't think she needs the protection so much. But maybe she does. Maybe the enemy team is like straight physical damage and you think, okay, she just needs to stay alive. Like, I'll leave it up to you to decide how to use it. Troll, another great hero who he can like 1v5 if you make this guy strong enough and enable him. And that's why, PA can do it too. That's why I think of Medallion for these heroes. They can play fast, but they can also go later in the game and reach that 1v5 potential. And so Medallion works either way, whether you're playing fast or playing for that middle to late game. Now, Ursa is a hero where I won't always get Medallion, but if Ursa is building to play fast, and if he is having a good game, then it's like, okay, let me enable him more with the Medallion. He can do Roshan early on his own. Let's make it even easier with the Medallion and make it easier to kill heroes, like ride that fast tempo. Now, if he's having a really bad game, then I'm not going to get the Medallion because if he has a bad game, he's not going to reach that point where he can 1v5. Not like Phantom Assassin and Troll who have that option in the right lineups. It depends on the game. But Ursa in general, he's a hero that drops off. And if you're already struggling early, like the Medallion is never going to find its value if you can't get kills because this guy's weak. Lifestealer, he can be played at a very high tempo as well. Pretty common to build Desolator on him, I would say. Yeah. He's a hero that he's like close to being able to do Roshan. And that's why it's nice to have the Medallion to push him over that edge to make it easier to do Roshan. And you know, he's not usually a hero that can scale into like a 1v5 lineup, and so it's like, oh, just buff him up. But sometimes he can. I feel like life stealers pop off in some games, you know? And that's why I think he's a little better. He's kind of related to PA and Troll in that sense more than Ursa. So let's put him there. Huskar and Alchemist, these are heroes that play at a very high tempo early game. They get a lot of extra value. So if you use the Medallion on them, they get a lot of extra value because they have crazy high regen. They both have abilities related to regen. You know, if they get Armlet, Huskar commonly gets Armlet. This guy sometimes does. He used to. I don't think it's common right now. But when you have a lot of HP regen, boosting their effective health by giving them more armor, that adds a ton of extra value to that HP regen. It also makes them very difficult to kill, right? Huskar will eventually kill everyone if he cannot be killed, especially if he's popping off early. Same with an Alchemist who has gotten enough farm. You know, he can still go overboard and feed, and so if you use a Medallion to protect him, or combine it, you know, if he is safe, you can combine it with Acid Spray to really reduce people's armor, make him even stronger. Either way. Now, Beastmaster, he's a tempo hero. Beastmaster himself does not really need the Medallion, right? We're not using the Medallion to enable the Beastmaster, but Beastmaster enables our team to play fast if we have that kind of lineup, which you should if you're picking Beastmaster, in my opinion. But obviously, you know, in pub games, it's not always going to work out. But because Beastmaster's playstyle allows him to play this fast tempo game, a Medallion from a support works really well with that. Plus, when he roars someone, you want to kill that guy really quickly, and so throwing a Medallion on that target really helps to make sure that let's kill this guy before he BKBs and TBs out or something, and gets away. Bristleback and Lone Druid to an extent, these are heroes that try to dominate early and snowball their start. And so, again, it's that idea of this early aggression, let's get a Medallion to combo with this. Plus, Bristleback has a armor reduction spell in Viscous Nasal Goo, so if he is chasing someone and you Medallion them, man, that feels awful when you're the target. Oh, Bristleback actually will buy a Medallion on his own sometimes, too. So, double check that. See if he's building one. Maybe you don't build one right away then. But eventually, if you see that he is going to turn it into a Solar Crest, so like you skipped a Medallion first, and then you see he has a Solar Crest queued up and he started to buy pieces, now you might buy that Medallion because you can combo both of them. But 2 Medallions, like, is not the best. It's a little inefficient. Lone Druid, Bear tends to be really strong early. And so, again, you can play that fast tempo. But if you reach that middle to late game portion, Lone Druid isn't bad. But the Bear actually becomes surprisingly fragile because he doesn't scale. He doesn't get stats or anything like that. And if he goes for like this Mask of Madness build, which subtracts some of his own armor, the Bear can actually be pretty fragile. 6 armor is not a lot at max level. And I know you can get him some items, but you know, he doesn't get the stat effect. And so the Bear can actually be surprisingly fragile. And so if you actually use Medallion on the Bear, that can be great to make him a bit more survivable. And if the Bear is surviving and attacking, that is naturally healing up the Druid himself. So it kind of works both ways. So I would say these heroes make me think of a Medallion. And I'm willing to get a Medallion, like even if I'm not one of these 5 supports. So if I was playing Undying and I had a Lone Druid mid and he's doing well, then I'm thinking, hey, I am Undying. I'm a fast tempo hero. This guy, he can play fast and he looks like he is. We're doing well. Let's push it. I'll get the Medallion. If it looks like it's going late, like, oh, he's not doing that well, we're going to have to farm really late, I won't get the Medallion. No, Undying can build other items because he doesn't have natural synergy on his own with the Medallion, but the play style he wants does match Medallion. So it's like, okay, it is an option for me if it's there. If that makes sense. I hope that made sense. Now if you have other heroes, let's see, who could we say? Faceless Void. He is not necessarily a hero that needs Medallion, He likes Solar Crest because of the attack speed, but not so much Medallion. But if Faceless Void was popping off, going crazy, he has a ton of kills, ton of farm, and I feel like we can transition this to a fast playstyle, I might still get a Medallion because that opens up Roshan, makes it a little easier. Faceless Void, not the best Roshan killer on his own. Even though he has the bash, it like comes down to a bit of luck. And so making it a little easier with the Medallion because I know he's doing well and because we can play fast, like that makes sense to me. I'm trying to emphasize the idea that Medallion is really about a play style of the game, and these heroes tend to embody that play style, but you can get that play style from other heroes, especially if your team is crushing the enemy. Because, you know, it's our pub games. Like, they don't always play out the way they should. Heroes that are meant to farm for a really long time, sometimes the enemy sucks. You just get fed a lot, and you're like, well, I'm Spectre, but I have a Radiance in like 12 minutes. I am now popping off. We can now play fast and aggressive. That's why there's not really a useful against category. It is about your team's priorities, really. Now, of course, if the enemy team was heavily physical damage, and in fact, many of these heroes on this list, let's get rid of Faceless Void again. Many of these heroes, like if they're on your team, Medallion is good. If they're on the enemy team, Medallion also tends to be good against these heroes. But again, like if the enemy team is playing fast, there are usually more defensive items for you to get that would help your team survive past the enemy's early aggression. Unless they truly are like full physical damage, then the Medallion is quite an early fighting item that could help you contest. But to me, that doesn't feel as good as when my team is the one that can play aggressive. Now, for the not so good against, I am not specifically talking about these heroes. Well, I am, but these heroes just represent 5 categories that I think make Medallion not so good. So for one, magic damage. If the enemy team has a ton of magic damage, or my team is a ton of magic damage, Medallion's not great. Medallion is about armor reduction. If it's all magic, it doesn't feel good. Now, if the enemy team is all magic, it might still be good on your team, so long as your team has the physical damage, because we are just enabling our carries to do more damage by using the Medallion on, say, the enemy Zeus. But we do lose the value of the defensive aspect of Medallion, where we cast it on our PA and protect her from physical. Oh, it's just a Zeus bursting her down. Well then, you know, the Medallion still functions aggressively, but we've lost half of the potential use, the defensive portion. And that's why it like doesn't feel as good. It can still be an option, but maybe like a Glimmer or a Pipe might do more to enable your carry by just helping them survive, rather than, you know, just adding more minus armor. Now, Venomancer, what does he represent? He represents people that can kite. Medallion, first of all, you need to cast it on the enemy heroes. It has a decent cast range, it's 1,000. But still, that means you have to get up in there to cast the Medallion on the enemy team. And your carry has to hit them to make use of that minus armor. This is why someone like PA, who can jump around even when she's getting slowed, like, that's pretty good. But if you have someone like Sven, he has a stun, but outside of that, he can be kited really heavily until he has the BKB. Same with like Ursa. You know, if they don't have BKBs and there's like a, for example, Veno, one of the best kiters in the game because he provides so much slow, what does Medallion do for you? It does not help you deal with that kiting issue. And so if you recognize your team's issue is kiting or being kited, like you have a Ursa who's popping off, but everyone is dodging him, the Medallion is not really necessary. I need an item to help Ursa not be kited to death. So I could go with a Force Staff to help him catch up to enemies or help him to escape easily. Maybe Atos is a little weird on 5 positions, I feel like, but it's that idea of catch. Maybe a Yule, something like that. A Blink Dagger to be the initiate for him. But I want something to deal with a kiting issue that people like Venomancer represent. Along that same kiting issue is just really mobile enemy heroes. So Pangolier, Puck, Storm Spirit, these kind of people who it's the same idea as Venomancer, where it's like it's not damage that's usually your issue. It's like I actually just need to hit this guy, but he's constantly getting away from my very kiteable Ursa, my Wraith King, Skeleton King. That was the same hero. But these heroes represent like where it's not damage we need, it is like mobility that is our issue. And Medallion doesn't help you with mobility. The Solar Crest does provide some move slow, which can help with that, but that is a really long way off for a support. And so typically we are thinking first about the Medallion, and then the Solar Crest happens to come later. So like for an Huskar, I might get a Medallion, and then if I think we could actually end the game, I might just go for the Solar Crest and just like really enable him. But say it's a PA, I get the Medallion to help, and then I see like, oh, this kind of like looks like it's dragging out. Let me just grab something else. And then after that item, if I feel like, okay, maybe now we can end the game, now I might get a Solar Crest later. PL, he is for illusions. Crazy. This is either illusion heroes on your team because you don't necessarily want to give away what hero is real, but also illusion heroes just tend not to benefit from negative armor so much as like these guys. These guys tend to be very single target focused killers, and that's why the Medallion is good. Illusion heroes play a little differently from that. And it's also hard to target, right? PL, he's got 8 illusions out. Which one is the right one to Medallion? I don't know. Even if I do know, it can be hard to click him. He has like a smaller collision size box. He's got illusions flying all over the place. It's really hard. And so it doesn't feel as good against PL. TB, also an illusion hero, but he is also someone who has really high armor. And in that case, instead of dealing with the armor, it might just be easier for your team to prioritize like magic burst to kill him, or a lot of stuns so that we can slowly get over killing him, like a scythe. Instead of trying to reduce 5 armor off of this guy who has like 40. Now, if you have other heroes like PA, or you're like a Dazzle or Vengeful Spirit who has that extra negative armor, sure, that could work. But say you're in an Undying who has no negative armor, then it's kind of like, well, we can subtract 5 from Terrorblade, sure, but like I think there's probably something better we could do instead. And yeah, I think that's it. Did I say aggressive, fast playstyle is enough? I don't know if I can emphasize that enough for you guys. That's like really what it's about. All right, I have nothing else to add really. Goodbye.